You're listening to the Gabe Molina Podcast.
All right, man. We're recording.
All right.
Super glad that you came to my house, man.
I'm excited to be here.
You know, I feel terrible because since I talked about doing the podcast thing, we've been like, let's hook up, let's do a podcast. And there's always something weird going on. And then this weekend we were supposed to get together and somebody got his second Rona shot. So he wasn't feeling very good. I don't know if it was that or allergies or what, but maybe it was Vidal telling me that I was a sellout for getting the shot. I don't know what it was, man. But when I left, I was like, I was struggling because I was like, dude, Clay's right here, you know? And I was like, let me go, let's just do this. But I felt nauseous. I felt kind of weak. And normally I'm always tired and lazy. But it was kind of like, well, I don't want to have a crappy podcast because my tummy hurts. You know what I'm saying? So
it was all good. We spent the day with the family anyway, so it was good on my end.
That's cool, man. So you're do I call you Captain Clay? What are you now?
You can call me Captain.
Captain.
I make my wife call me Captain.
Okay,
yeah.
I'll call you Captain Clay. So you're a helicopter pilot now, official, or are we still training?
So, well, yeah, you're always training, but
Okay.
I have my private license. I don't have commercial, so
Okay.
I'm licensed
So you have to give rides
fly.
for free.
At this point, I have to give rides for free. That's right. So I've got a lot of friends that want to go up. And
Yeah.
This is the time. This is the time to hit me up because
Yeah.
you wait too much longer, it's going to cost you.
Yeah, it should. Yesterday I was looking up. I was like, you know what? Because you'd mentioned about maybe flying up here and picking you up in New Braunfels, and I was like, man, maybe we'll do it. And then I get stupid, right? Because I'm like, well, do I need a helicopter? You know, and then my first thought is like, when we buy furniture, what's the weight limit? You know, am I gonna fit in the door? Is it gonna get off the ground? And so then I go look at price. Well, then when I got to price, I was like, no, let me just trim down a little bit and get in Clay's one day. But when you called me that weekend, me and Bo were talking about it. Bo was like, man, Clay just called me out of the blue and was like, let's go get a helicopter. And I was like, he called me too. And, I had that meeting on Monday, so I was a little worried about you going all the way over there. Not so much because you're a grown man, you can handle yourself. But, when you have something, I'm going to call it exotic like that, people tend to screw with you, And I was like, well, he's going to stay the night someplace. He's going to have to be, So I was like, man, it'd be nice if he had somebody with him. But so I was a little nervous for you making that trip. But
I wish I had a road buddy because that was a long, long trip to Destin, Florida, and back.
How many hours?
Not as long as you think. So my way up there, I went to Destin via Stonewall, Texas, because I had a friend of my brother-in-law's that loaned me the trailer. So I had to go from George West to Stonewall. And
let's tell everybody who your brother-in-law is, because he's got a business, right?
Yeah, Toby Holland, Sulphur Creek Helicopters.
Yep.
Hey, for all of your helicopter needs, if you want to pay for it at this point, contact Toby Holland. But
if you live a little dangerously and you don't have the scratch for it, call Clay.
No, but he's a phenomenal, he's a pilot, right?
Yeah.
I've just got a license. He's a pilot. He's great. And
Yeah.
Anyway, one of his buddies had a trailer that would fit that helicopter I bought. And so, Stonewall's out of Fredericksburg, for folks who don't know. Pretty area. But anyway, rolled up to Stonewall, hooked onto this trailer, and drove straight. Only stopping at Buc-ee's.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, Buc-ee's, and then and actually there's more Buc-ee's than in the state of Texas. You leave Texas and there's actually Buc-ee's outside of Texas too, in case you didn't know.
I think that once you get out of Texas, they should rename them.
Maybe
It's something else. That's not Buc-ee's.
Yeah, but all the way to Destin, Florida. Rolled into Destin, Florida at like 11 something that night, and then the next day. So I can't. So to answer your question, how many hours? I have no idea.
Yeah, bunches.
A bunch.
Yeah.
And
what kind of got you on? Because like everybody's like, man, I've told Nina for 12 years. I'm like, let's buy a helicopter. Everybody says let's buy a helicopter. Nobody buys a helicopter.
Yeah.
So what kind of made you take that huge jump?
So that's a great question. So
It's so crazy just to say, what made you buy a helicopter?
that's not a question you get a lot, or you ask a lot. But
No.
When the oil field hit the skids, there was kind of a void in what the hell I was doing, because I wasn't doing anything, right? And so my brother-in-law flies, and I've enjoyed flying with him. And actually, even before Toby, introduced me to a different type of flying. I mean, I used to take a helicopter to work every 2 weeks, right? That was my taxi ride.
Yeah.
So I've spent lots of hours in a helicopter, but never as the dude in control of it, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, kind of it ended up being a kind of a deal. I was like, you know what? It would be really neat to fly. I've got time on my hands, so let's go learn to fly.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I
What school did you go to?
Veracity in Seguin, which is not far from here. So
Okay.
anybody looking for helicopter training, you need to look up Louis Liao. He was my CFI. Tell you what, we learned a lot together. I was his first student that went from beginning to end. Right?
Really?
He was a fairly new CFI. He had some other students, but kind of picked them up, in the different stage of training. So
Okay.
we learned a lot together, and he and I still hook up. He's a friend of mine. I mean, you got a lot of hours sitting beside each other in a little tiny helicopter, and so you learn a lot about each other. And we're buds, and we still fly together every now and again. And anyway, great guy, great CFI.
Is it just for fun right now, or are you looking to do something with it professionally, I guess?
Well, so that's part of what I guess is the next step, right? So
Because I'm an idiot, dude. I would spend a lot of money on that and just stand by it and take pictures for Instagram. That's all I would do. I probably wouldn't even learn how to fly it.
It might be cheaper standing beside it and taking pictures than actually putting it in the air, because they're not cheap to maintain. So if you either going to do it for pay, or you've just got a bank account that can support that. So the goal is to do it for pay in the very near future. So I'm working towards getting my hours so that I can go take my commercial test, because there's a whole series of tests you got to take, both written and flight test, and then you can you get your commercial certificate, and then you can get paid to fly,
cool.
as opposed to just what I'm doing now, which is a lot of sightseeing from above.
That's cool. I bet you know every square inch of the property you're living on.
You think you know your property till you see it from above.
I felt like a jackass the other day because you were like, we'll get into this here in a minute, but y'all had some uninvited guests on the property. So I was like, hey man, you let me know. I got a $500 drone. I'll drive down there, and I got 10 minutes of flight time on it and 5 batteries. And you're like, dude, I got a helicopter. And I was like, oh, never mind.
Yeah. You got out Whataburgered on that, dude.
Big time.
No, we did have some unwanted guests come through the ranch, but what I've enjoyed about having a helicopter is you can tell who the trashy people are. Because when you fly over people's property, you're like, look how many junk cars they got.
Now when you see them at church, you're like, ugh. Trash.
That's right.
Well, let me ask you this. Speaking of unwanted guests, what's going on down south, man? Is it as crazy as it seems like? Because I'll be honest with you, like I follow some stuff on Facebook, and I hear things, and of course we grew up down there, and so we know a lot of people when we hear stories. Have y'all had a lot of interactions, or not so much?
So, Live Oak County doesn't have it as bad as other counties, right?
By the way, we're talking about illegal immigration right now.
Yeah,
so go ahead.
that's right. So we don't have it as bad as others, but it's. Hey, so there's nothing to sugarcoat, right? There's always been a flow of illegal immigration through South Texas. I grew up on a farm, and we had, at times illegals that worked on the farm, right? But in the last 4 or 5 months, the flow of traffic is like, it's more than just a little bit noticeable. Like you have to really divert your eyes to say, I don't notice what's going on.
Yeah.
And we had some illegals come through the ranch the other night, which which I live in the middle of nowhere. Nobody drops by the house. Nobody was
Yeah.
just in the area, right? That doesn't exist
Yeah.
where I live, because I don't live in town. So, and having illegals come to the ranch was never out of the realm of possibility. But I never thought they'd come through the ranch out through the back fence. They came through multiple other properties and came through the fence,
Yeah.
and actually drove through the pasture that my house sits in. Right?
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
So they weren't on foot. They were.
No, they were in a car, and they weren't being chased at the time, so they were going slow. So our dog was barking. You know, there's a difference in a bark and then there's a bark,
Yeah.
right? So this was a bark, like something's up.
Something's different.
Yeah. So I jumped up out of bed at like 4 a.m. and looked out the window, and there were lights going across my pasture.
What time was it about? Late at night or?
No, this was about 4:15, 4 o'clock ish.
Okay.
And so Erin wakes up, which is my wife, by the way.
Smoking hot.
Smoking hot. Yeah, I married up for sure.
You did.
which I didn't set the bar very high for. But anyway,
Still up there.
Yeah. So say she called the sheriff's department, let them know what was going on, and I watched them go. Like there were at the closest, they're a couple of 100 yards from the house, and they're. Whether they knew my house was there or not, I don't know, but
Yeah.
that's irrelevant. They were following the road through the pasture at our house, and they actually get to the top of the hill where there's a gate, and they had the courtesy of stopping and opening the gate to go through that gate. Now they did not have the courtesy to shut it behind them.
Well, I was going to say, if they've gone through multiple properties to get through yours, there's probably not a whole lot of gates being open and closed. Or they burned through fences or anything?
They did. So they burned through a fence at the back of our property. Actually, so the chase started when it left 281. They actually went through Sheriff Busby's property. So they blew through the sheriff's property on the way to mine. But anyway, they broke through the fence, came on, and they got to the front entrance where the county, where our entrance meets the county road, and we have a pipe entrance. It's nothing elaborate, but it's pipe.
Sure.
And anyway, they got to that, and they're like, "Oh crap!" So they luckily they chose to not run through the fence like a pipe fence or pipe gates like they've done other people.
Yeah.
So they actually blew through the fence beside me, and about 100 yards from my gate, they tried to get onto the county road. The only time I'll brag about my commissioner's grading standards, but there's such a difference in elevation between where the ranch property that they left and the county road that they got high centered and stuck right there.
I was going to say, what kind of car were they in? Because
They were a stolen truck. It was a
truck.
It was a jacked up truck. I mean, it had a lift on it and some 4-wheel drive and decent tires, but it's pretty good. It's a pretty good drop from the ranch property down to the county road. And
Jeez.
I don't think they realized what they were getting into when they said that's the spot we wanted to go.
they didn't have the best navigator.
No. So anyway, they got stuck right there, but I didn't want them when we saw this happen. I didn't want them to feel chased, so I kind of took my time. I got dressed and made coffee or turned the coffee pot on, and because the last thing I wanted them to do was just start running through the ranch or like driving hard through the ranch again, right?
I mean, when you think about it, there's probably already a sense of desperation there, and so if they're already being chased, and I guess you come out. My first thought is, let me grab my gun and start shooting all over the place. But I mean, if you do that, all you're going to do is heighten that sense of urgency that they already have, and they're probably going to do more damage to your property than. So you probably handled it the best way somebody should have.
Yeah, because I didn't want at that point there was the sheriff's department or nobody was chasing them through my property at that point. So they were they were tootling along. They weren't flying through the property. They were just cruising along, right? So, anyway, so they ended up getting high centered. So by the time I did eventually get in my truck armed, just in case. But I had no.
What were you packing?
Well, I carried a multiple of a variety of weapons. So, but I didn't. That wasn't the goal, right?
Sure.
I didn't. The last thing I wanted was to actually see them on the property, right?
Yeah.
That's not what I wanted at all.
I think that goes for everybody. A lot of times that people sit there and they tell stories like this, and they say, "Man, you should have shot at them," or blah blah. And it's like, when people that understand firearms and people that have been around them their whole life, they understand the ramifications of using them. And when you're a firearm guy and you're a true firearm guy, you don't ever want to use it. Hopefully all that ammo and all those firearms, from the day you buy them to the day you die, they were just for target practice.
Yeah, you want the practice that you've done to go unused, right? That's the type of practice you want to never put into play, right?
Yeah.
I never wanted to do it. So I knew several people that told me the same thing. Hey, why did you start shooting? And hey, well, for two reasons, right? I mean, one, you don't know who's in there. It could have been a driver and a truckload of kids.
Yeah. And
the last thing you wanted was a bullet to find its mark.
Sure.
Right? I don't want that on my conscience ever.
Yeah.
And even if it was a truckload of unsavory characters, I still don't want it on my conscience that I pulled the trigger on someone that wasn't at that. I was in no imminent danger.
Nobody's life was threatened.
Right. Nobody.
Like
now, hey, come to the house and find out what happens. Right. That's a different story.
Yeah.
But at that point, they didn't know I was there. They were going across the pasture. I was not in harm's way.
Yeah.
And then secondly, that's actually illegal, right? You don't have, if you're not being threatened, you don't have the legal right to lob shots off at
Sure.
people, right? So, and I know you don't know this, but so I'm going to tell you anyway, because
Tell me, but I will tell you this: I pretty much know everything.
Oh well, so as a result of all this stuff that's been going on, I'm currently putting a county-wide meeting together.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the whole ride up here for the last 2 days, or
Pull that a little closer to you.
Oh.
That way you sound super clear.
for all day today, I spent today on the phone, organizing, and I've finally got a venue and time and date set, and I've got a panel of folks to come talk to the county, because I think a lot of people are concerned.
Yeah.
And the information just isn't flowing out of our county leadership, or even just state, federal, whatever you want to call it, leadership. And I don't want desperate people to do desperate things, because you can tell in people's voices. They're
nervous.
Yeah, nervous is the right word.
Yeah.
So they're just nervous. I don't know that they're desperate, but they're nervous and they're concerned. And hey, my kids don't get to go run the ranch by themselves anymore.
Yeah.
And that's a heartbreaking for me, because I grew up running around and not a care in the world. And until recently, my boys did too. And we don't let them go on the ranch by themselves anymore. Matter of fact, neither my wife nor I travel on the ranch unarmed anymore.
Yeah.
Because you don't know who's potentially going to be there. And that's a sad state of affairs. We should not have that fear.
So when is this meeting being held, and when, where, and what are you hoping to cover?
Okay, so on May 11th. So
Today is, by the way, April 26th.
yes. So 2 weeks from tomorrow, at George West ISD cafeteria, because that was, apart from the Coliseum in George West, that was the biggest venue I could find to hold several hundred people. I originally was going to have it like the Adobe Theater, but it's just not quite big enough for the attraction that I think it's going to pull in. So the school system is graciously allowing me to use the cafeteria for, it's a community event. It's not like I'm holding a rock concert, right?
Sure.
So, but anyway, so I've invited our county judge, our sheriff, someone from the district attorney's office to talk to us about the things you can and cannot do for the cowboys out there that think they can just start blazing away, right?
Sure.
I want them, not only do I want our citizens to be protected, but I also want to make sure that they don't do something
That's going to get them in trouble down the road. Sure.
right. Yeah, because whether they thought they were doing something that was in their legal bounds or not, I actually want them to hear what is and is not, probably more importantly, is not legal to do, right?
It's funny because this is stuff that's important, and not just for people in Live Oak County, but people everywhere need to understand. Right. I read something a long time ago, or saw it online or something. Somebody was advertising for legal services for gun owners, and they made one of the statements was, every bullet has a lawyer attached to it. And it's like, it's easy people are going to sit there and go, well, country people are wild. But people don't understand, I guess, the sentiment down there right now. Like, my sister bought some property out towards Freer, and she's probably been on there a year. And when she first bought it, it was just nothing but thick brush. And they found, I think, 6 backpacks, empty bottles of water, cell phone chargers, numbers. So immediately she already purchased it and sold her house. So immediately it was kind of like, what did I get myself into? And then she spends time and money and making improvements to the property. And, all of a sudden, this starts happening. And then, of course, local guy gets hurt. And we don't know the ins and outs of everything that happened, but it looks like something happened to him that, maybe somebody attacked him or something.
Right.
But, she's out there, and it's her, and it's her girlfriend, and they're nervous, man. I wouldn't say they're scared, but they're nervous. And now it's like I have my gun on my hip all the time, And she goes to work, and she has to park in a certain place because she can't park in the work parking area because
of her job, right?
Because of her job, and she's like, I got to have my gun with me, And so that fear this is my whole problem, kind of like with everything that's going on, is I've always had this little saying that I said since like high school. I would say, to avoid a confrontation, you avoid the situation, right? And so I think with what's going on and the politicians that are now running things or not running things, they're putting your Joe Blow population in a position where something really bad can happen, and it's because of policies and behaviors that they're doing that have kind of, it's always been there, right? People have always come across the border. There's always been people coming across for years, but now there's such a huge influx, right? And I don't know everything. I work for a living, right? That's my cousin Lee, who's probably listening to this right now. He works too, but he don't do anything. He just watches the news all day long. But anyway, it's kind of like I look at things and I go, okay, well, it's more out of control than what it used to be. Your mother carrying her daughter across the border, they're going straight to the Border Patrol agents, right? Because they know they're going to get processed, taken in AC, fed, and probably let go, Or they're going to be put in a hotel or something. So these people that are doing the bailouts, that are running through the properties, they're, in my opinion, that's the group of people that's probably up to a little bit more no good, right? And they're a little more desperate. And those are the people that everybody's worried about. It's hard as a human being to see these images on the news, and some of it's crap, right? But it's hard to see people, hell, if I'm not walking through the desert, I'm not walking through brush country. You know what I'm saying? I'm too fucking soft for that. Apologize for my language, Clay. I'm sorry, but I'm too soft for that, right? So when you see that and you see these people, and it's like there's desperation there, but there's also an element that's not desperate. They're looking for opportunity, and whether it's stealing vehicles, moving drugs across. I saw something the other day where these women, they're walking the border. The cartel are dropping off, people on the other side of the river, and they're calling the Border Patrol to come pick them up. And while the Border Patrol all runs over here to pick up the people that they just crossed across the border, they're moving drugs on the other side, down the road somewhere. So I kind of got off on a tangent, but all that to say, I think you putting that together is giving people tools to understand what's going on, to understand they're not by themselves, to understand law enforcement is aware of things, and these are your options. Because it's not like on TV. When you pull a gun on somebody, when you decide to shoot somebody, that's, you're spoiled, dude.
I know.
She's never given me a beer in my life.
I'm coming back.
But it has the potential to put people in serious danger because of policies that are implemented right now.
So for sure, right? And along with our local officials, the Border Patrol and DP. I'll have a Border Patrol agent there to speak on behalf of Border Patrol. I'll have a DPS agent to speak on behalf of DPS. But I've also invited our congressman in Washington, Vicente Gonzalez's office, as they've committed to sending a representative, and then also our two senators have. Of course, you're not going to get Cornyn, you're not going to get Cruz
Sure.
in a cafeteria in George West, Texas. I get that, right? But they're going to send representatives so that at least we can have somebody, because border security is a federal issue.
Sure.
Our sheriff's deputies, technically it's not their job, right? And actually, it's a federal crime, so our state or our sheriffs don't really have much to charge them with, because they're not committing a state crime, except for if they steal a vehicle or they're criminal trespassing, things like that. They don't. But the immigrants that are coming across, they don't have anything to charge them with, because they're committing federal crimes, not state crimes.
Sure.
So that's where you're putting our local law enforcement. Not only are you taxing the resources because they're not doing what they would normally be doing, they're chasing illegals, but they have nothing. They're turning them loose, because what are you going to charge them with? There's nothing they can charge them with. Nothing.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we're putting them. I've got some assistance from folks that are offering to help me put the meeting together. But I'm kind of spearheading that effort so that folks are just informed of what the heck's going on. Because I don't. With silence, people's imaginations can run wild.
Yeah.
Right, and that's even
and I guess
more
that's
dangerous,
the point
right?
As a point I was kind of trying to make was, people are nervous.
Yes.
Right. So like you said, the imagination runs wild.
Yeah. So it's not that I didn't have sympathy for it before I had folks come through our property, because I absolutely did, but it hit a whole new level of awareness when I saw them drive through my pasture, a few hundred yards from my wife and kids, and so I was like, something. I know as John Q. citizen, I'm kind of powerless to stop it, but I want everyone to be informed of what's going on, so that we as a collective, Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative, whatever you want to say, we still have to live by the rule of law, and also have a bit of compassion, because you know what? If I lived in one of these countries that was just god awful, I don't know what I would be doing. I'd like to think I would do it the right way. Try to move to a country legally and through the process, instead of through a back door and hoping to get something in return. I've never really wanted something from anybody, right? I wanted
Sure.
to always make my way myself.
Yeah.
And I think a bunch of these people are in that boat, right? I think they want an opportunity, but then there are an element that's coming over for nefarious reasons, and that's unacceptable, right?
Yes.
It's absolutely unacceptable.
And I think that's part of where people get, it's amazing, man. And maybe it's just because we're getting older, right? And so we pay a little more attention. We're not in our teens and early 20s and running around and doing whatever we want. And maybe it's because we pay more attention, maybe because there's more going on, maybe because information's coming at you at 100 miles an hour from all different directions. But it's important that people, you're not going to tell somebody, hey, you're a Democrat, don't be thinking that way, you need to think this way. Because right now everybody's split up the middle. But what I always feel and that bothers me is that people refuse to put all that aside and just think logically for a minute. People run on emotion like crazy, and they don't think logically. And so they sit there and go, well, look at all these kids and all these women. But it's like, that's not all it is. If that's all they came across, you know what? Let's figure out something and find a place to put them.
Right.
But it's mixed with a lot of crap, man. It's mixed with a lot of bad people. We hear stories. I don't know. I'm sure you've been paying attention because you're that kind of guy. But about them using kids and putting them with people and bringing them across and then sending the kid back to Mexico to put them with more people.
Do it all over again, right?
It's like, that's unbelievable. Yeah. And when you have a certain group of people in this country that talk about children, the children, and you're letting that happen. I'd read something the other day that parents in I don't know how accurate it is. I don't know what's available to them down there, but I've heard that some of their daughters, south of Mexico, whether it's El Salvador or Ecuador or Venezuela or Guatemala, they'll put their kids on birth control because they know they're going to get raped. And I sit there and I tell Nina, I'm like, look, I've lived a soft life, man. I really have, and I get that. But when I sit there and I kind of take myself out of that and I put some thought to it and I say, I would never send my kid. You know what? We're going to starve to death together here because I'm not sending you up to that crap.
And that's why I don't buy the argument that them coming here is the humane thing to do. Hey, listen, there's nothing humane about sending your children. And I don't know what the exact statistic is, but it's upwards of 70% of the women and kids that are making that trip are abused, not necessarily just sexually, but physically. How is that humane? Right?
No, not at all.
How is that humane at all? I don't buy that argument, and it's not humane. Them staying almost regardless of their current circumstances at home, them staying within the protection of their family has got to be more humane than making that trip and risking abuse and death. And hey, let me tell you what, it's about to get hot in Texas, right? So we're not right now. They're not finding bodies from dehydration and heat exhaustion. That they're not finding those bodies right now because it's still. Hey, we hit 100 the other day, but that was for a day. But it's about to be 100 every day,
right?
And so
I think that's honestly, I think that's gonna be something where it's gonna be a lot more messy and it's gonna be a lot more heartbreaking. I think a lot of times people try and figure out an answer to the problem, right? And it's like there's rarely a single solution to a problem, and it's like having, and I don't know what it is. I'm not a politician. I'm not a business guy. I don't know anything about this stuff. But it's like until we can somehow do business with those countries down there to where there's something that they provide, capitalism, right? Capitalism is going to be the only thing that gets those people out of that. Because right now there's nothing for them, And so they leave. Some of them leave for better lives. I get that. And like you said, some of them are coming for nefarious reasons. And they're using people. And they're hurting people. And one thing that bothers me, and I get super upset about it, that's why I'm glad you're here, because I'm going to talk about it, is there's a lot of people in this country that are willing to overlook them recycling kids like that. Raping kids, physically abusing kids, females. They're willing to overlook that so they can feel better about the other aspect of, families coming here. And it's like, there's that portion of it. There's the other day, I think it was a state trooper or something. There was a picture of a state trooper where the cartel had thrown the mom and a baby in the Rio Grande to get away from the cops. And it's like, that blows your mind, man. That's terrible. Yeah. And people ignore it. And they go, no, look at these kids. We got to put them somewhere here. What's going on down there that they're coming all the way up here? I'll be honest with you. If those people are walking 2,000 miles and they're legitimately walking 2,000 miles, let them in. I doubt that that's happening. No. Somebody's moving these people all the way up here, whether it's the cartels or who it is. Somebody's moving them all the way up here, and it's not necessarily happening for the reasons that everybody thinks it is. Somebody's doing something shady, and somebody's trying to overwhelm the Border Patrol. Somebody's trying to overwhelm the local PD and sheriff's office and state troopers so they can do other stuff.
Right.
People ignore that, man.
Yeah, you're spot on, right? So I don't know what let me just make that very clear. I have no clue what the solution is either.
I think if people made me king, I'd figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously. Yeah. I don't know what the solution is either, but what's currently going on is obviously the opposite of the solution, right?
Sure.
So, the cartels are making out like bandits, right?
Big
so
time, man.
they're the money they're charging per person, and you know what? When that person comes across and they get caught, there's no harm to the cartel.
No.
They've already been paid.
Yeah.
What do they care at the point where they cross over the river? What do they care?
Did you see that video? There was a video, night vision. I don't know if it was in New Mexico or Arizona. There's a coyote. He's sitting on the fence, and he drops two like 5 or 6 year olds out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Drops them off over the fence, leans over, drops them in, and leaves.
So I'm gonna be honest with you. I haven't watched that video, but because I'm intentionally not watching that video because I don't want to see it. Right.
Yeah.
I know child abuse happens,
Sure.
but I don't want to see that either. So I know this. It's not that I'm not trying to shield myself from it, but I know it happens. Why do I actually need to put my eyes on it to know that it's happening? It's awful. It's absolutely, it's disgraceful. It's awful. And if there wasn't a certainty of getting across, they wouldn't be doing it, right? And that's kind of what's changed. Not to get political, right? But by
all means, let's get political.
Well, but that's what's changed with this administration, right?
You're exactly right.
Is the certainty of getting across has changed. So, and it's not like we under the previous administration. It wasn't like there wasn't people still coming across, because there was,
sure,
but not in mass, not in the numbers that you're seeing now. So
and you got to keep in mind also, yes, people were still coming across, but not in the volumes that they are now. So what happens is you end up increasing that volume. So before, under Trump, there were fewer people coming than under Biden. So your resources, right, now they're allocated to patrol more of the border,
right,
which puts them in a better position to catch drug smugglers,
right,
people doing illegal things. But now under Biden, there's such a huge group of people coming, a large amount of people coming. So now those people that were out those agents who were out in the field, now they're babysitting inside of a building somewhere. So guess what?
100% true. Yeah.
Now you've got war stuff coming across the border, and even more of it.
More of it, and it's a massive cat and mouse game, right? So, and the Border Patrol, they're under-resourced, and they're having to divert their attention to literally changing diapers and babysitting, and not catching these folks. So now it's falling on the local law enforcement, who should be doing something else, because they're not staffed for that type of mission, so to speak. I mean, they're not staffed. That's not what they're tasked to do as an organization, right? The sheriff's department shouldn't be doing that. Our local cops should not be doing that. Even our DPS should not be doing that. But the DPS is doing a hell of a job.
Yeah.
Spending tons of resources at the border. I think our local sheriffs are doing a hell of a job. Spending resources, fighting or combating some of that stuff that they shouldn't have to be doing. And so hats off to them, because they're understaffed, they're under resourced, and they're out.
And they're doing a job that they shouldn't be doing.
That's right.
People sit there and go, well, have Border Patrol babysit these kids. And it's like, well, when Border Patrol's babysitting those kids,
who's watching the border?
Drugs and violence are coming across the border, and people just think, oh, it's the border. And it's like, no, it's coming to your town.
Yeah.
It's coming to your city. It's coming to your school, your playground. All that stuff's going to increase. And it all started because somebody let the border wide open. So
I don't know who all listens to this podcast and where they're from, but
literally me, you, and Nina.
Yeah. But sometimes I get the impression, and rightly or wrongly, because the media kind of can spin things the way they want their narrative to.
We're gonna get there in a minute, too, Clay.
Good. But I sometimes feel that folks up north think they're making a bigger deal of it than what it is. Well, you know what? I'm here to tell you, it's a big deal, right? It's not something that's just put on. We're not raising hell because there's a new administration. We're raising hell because all hell's broke loose in South Texas,
yeah.
or along the border, not just South Texas, but along the border, all hell's broke loose.
Yeah.
And it's changed your way of life. It's changed the very way of life that we've chosen to live, right? I live in rural South Texas because that's where I want to be, because I want to be, out on a ranch. I want to be, away from the hustle and bustle of city life. That's what we chose, right? And now you no longer have that safety and comfort that I had, 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking, and I feel bad for my kids and for my wife. I mean, we have an alarm system on the house, not because I'm scared somebody's going to break in while we're there, but I want to know that somebody's not in the house when we get home from somewhere else, when we hadn't been there, right?
I mean, I would imagine. When I was a kid, we'd go to softball tournaments all weekend, and my dad. Now that I always thought my dad was crazy, but now that I'm older, I'm like, oh, he's pretty.
You're certain he's crazy?
Pretty smart guy, or maybe I'm crazy. But when we would come back from softball tournaments, first thing we did, boys went in the house, checked the house, check the closets, check the bathroom, check the shower, under the bed. It's at night, everything's cool. All right, mom and my sister come inside. So hearing you say that reminds me of that. And we didn't do it because things were out of control back then. That's just how Dad rolled. That's just something he did. Let's check the house real quick, make sure nobody's in there, and that way we can be comfortable. So to hear you say that, it's like that's. To me, I grew up that way, but that's not a way you want your kids to. And then your kids are little, right?
Yeah.
So your kids are already getting in your head. Well, man, we got to check the house before we get home. And it's like. That's not fair to them, because that should be their safe place. That's their, you talk about safe places, that should be their place of comfort.
Right.
They should be able to walk onto the property and go, we're safe, we're home.
Yeah.
We don't have to deal with that stuff that's out in the city or out in the streets or anything like that. We're at a safe. But no, now you have to go home and you got to check it. And once you check it and secure it, you got to make sure it stays secured.
Yeah.
And we're gonna get into guns here in a minute.
It's a sad state of affairs. The current way of life that we're having to deal with right now is a sad state of affairs.
Yeah, and one thing that, oh man, how much memory do I have on this card? I don't know, because we got so much more to go, Clay. Guns. So safety, right? One thing that I find myself doing, and I usually have a gun with me or a knife. This is my thing. I'm fat, middle-aged, and out of shape. If we're going to fight, I'm going to cheat. That's the way I see it. So there's this. It amazes me, and we don't have to get into the ins and outs of gun control laws and stuff like that, but there is this constant attack on the Second Amendment, and I feel like there's always been this tongue-in-cheek thing going on, right? Like when you're in high school and you're in the hallway and there's a guy you don't really like and you don't really want to fight because the teachers are watching, but you kind of bump shoulders a little bit and you let them know, hey, I'm here. And there's always been this, well, the Second Amendment is for this, that, and the other. It's for hunting, it's for self-defense. The cat's out of the bag.
It's for tyranny. It's
for tyrannical government. Yeah. That's what it's for. And I always tell people, the owning guns, if we didn't have so many guns in this country, I know people get shot and killed all the time. It's a terrible thing. But if we didn't have guns in this country, I'm convinced we'd be China or Russia by now, which is scary. But not just that, let's back off, because that's way down the road.
Yeah.
Let's keep it simplistic. One thing that I think 2020 was amazing for was it was a terrible year. A lot of people have died. A lot of people are still dying. But what did we have? We had the coronavirus. We had cities burning. We had riots. We had protests. We had a lot of crap, man. This is one thing that I tell people, and I don't blast things on social media because I feel like that's not necessarily the place for it, which it might be the place for it. But to me, I'd rather have a conversation. You know, you want to talk politics, you want to talk this, that, or the other, let's have dinner and let's have a conversation. But one thing that I learned, and I feel that everybody should at least notice, is when things get really bad, nobody's coming for you. Nobody's coming to help you. Nobody's coming to feed you. You are responsible for yourself. But there's a huge swath of people that, as technology's gotten better, have gotten softer and always assume there's always going to be an Uber Eats. There's always going to be an Uber to pick me up. There's always going to be somebody to do something for me so that I can live. You and me grew up in the country. My dad didn't have much. We had a lot. We processed a lot of our pigs, fish, deer. That's what we ate, you know. I'm sure you did the same.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm always saying that's something that you don't want to forget. That's something you don't want to forget. Then 2020 comes around, and it's like, holy shit, this is amazing. Because this is a terrible time to be in, but I do not feel ill prepared. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I feel comfortable. And that's one thing that I love it, because Nina, something clicked last year. All of a sudden, she starts looking at things differently. You know, what should I tell everybody? Beaumont is fixing to kill somebody. I don't know if you heard that bark, but he's a beast. Chill out, Beaumont. Anyway, I always tell people, because all of a sudden people wanted ammo, people wanted guns, people wanted meat, people wanted toilet paper. This is the thing. I'm going to tell you from my perspective. He is getting rowdy. But if you wait till you're in the crap to get ready, it's too late.
It's too late. That's right.
You're not going to find food. You're not going to find toilet paper. You're not going to find ammo. You're not going to find a gun. And if you do, it's going to be through the roof. So you have to be prepared in advance. And I was telling Nina's cousins when they were here with us during the freeze, we also had the great freeze of 2021. Yeah. You know what? I really enjoy those uncomforts, man. I really do. Because they let me know, hey, you're in a good position, or hey, you need to fix this. You know? So being in those discomforts has been a truly a blessing. But it's like you can't sit there and go, it's never going to happen. Because you had 3 terrible things happen in a year.
Yeah.
You know?
We've always been a bit of preppers at our... As if I needed to tell you that, right? We've always been a bit of preppers at our house. So the whole COVID lockdown... so it did bother me, but not for the same reasons, right? But I was comfortable.
Sure.
I have all the guns and ammo I need, and I can build more at home.
Yeah.
So I wasn't worried from a food standpoint at all. Hey, that was no problem.
Yeah.
But I was more upset about the whole lockdown. So normally I want to be home and not go see anybody because that was my choice. Both. But then when they told me I couldn't, I'm like, I never wanted to go somewhere so badly because I was told I couldn't. So I was like, I'm going to show these people I'm going to town just to go to town, you know? But
yeah, I'm the same way, man.
So you tell me I can't do something, it just makes me want to do it all that much more.
Yeah.
So the whole lockdown, it didn't concern me because, like I said, I had all the guns, ammo, food I needed. I live in the country, right? That wasn't a problem for me. Even the freeze wasn't a problem for me. We didn't lose power, so we had extra company at our house.
Yeah.
That people that did lose power. So anyway, yeah. So when seconds count, the cops are minutes away, and that's not a knock on the cops. That's that's the facts of the matter, right? And so you need to be prepared. And I'm a huge fan of the Second Amendment. I'm a huge fan of people. If you want to carry on your hip, you carry on your hip. I don't choose to carry openly, but you can bet your bottom dollar that if I'm in public somewhere, there's a gun on me.
Sure.
And if you want to find out, just do something stupid and find out.
I like that you said when seconds count, cops are minutes away.
Yeah.
About, I don't know, maybe a month or two ago, I was asleep. The alarm went off. We've been having trouble with one of the alarms. I won't say which one, but it was the garage. And so we're laying in bed. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, and the alarm starts wailing. House alarm. Garage door, garage door, garage door. I had my FN 509, which I'm in love with right now, the tactical version, by the bed, and literally, dude, my heart rate went from like 79 to 111 instantly. I'm up out of bed. I hear a garage door. I grab the gun. I chamber around. I'm walking barefooted, and I'm still half asleep. And I'm walking to the garage, and I'm waiting to hear a utility door, because that's the next door if somebody's actually in the house.
Right.
So I get to the utility door. I take a second. I take a deep breath. I kind of wake up a little bit more. I go into the garage, and I search the garage. Nobody's there. Nina turned the alarm off. She turns the alarm off. I check the rest of the house. I'm like, screw it. I'm already up. I got a bullet in the barrel. Let's check the rest of the house. Check the rest of the house. She goes, well, let's call the alarm people. I don't want them to send the cop over.
Well, why didn't they call you?
We called the alarm people.
Why didn't they call you?
Get this. We call the alarm people. And they go, oh, we haven't gotten a signal that your alarm went off yet. So in the time that it took me to get out of bed, chamber around, grab the gun, chamber around, walk to the garage, search the garage, and turn the alarm off, they still hadn't gotten the signal that our alarm went off. Now, it probably took 15, 20 seconds. But imagine if
you're quick though. It could have been faster than that.
I got
You're like a jungle cat.
I'm like a what is that? What is that cat in Alice in Wonderland?
Cheshire cat.
There you go. That big ring-tailed thing. but you know, it took maybe 20 seconds. To me, it felt like 5 minutes. You know, but it's like if somebody was in the house and we had
it'd all be over.
It'd all be over.
Yeah.
And the cops haven't even been notified. Yeah. That's how quick things happen. And that's why people, I legitimately do love taking people to shoot for the first time, or however many times they want to go.
Yeah.
Because to me, it's so important to understand how a gun works for multiple reasons. So you can defend yourself, for one, if you need to. I've had people, and I've taken people to go shoot who hate guns and don't ever want to buy one. But this is
they shoot.
Well, this is what I tell them. Yeah. At least let me show you how it operates. So if you're ever in a position where you need to be the responsible one to take control of that gun and empty the ammunition.
That's right. Even if it's just clearing the round,
you've got to know how to grab it,
yeah,
how to handle it, how to clear the ammunition out of it, make it safe. I don't care if you ever go shoot again, as long as you know how to make it safe. That's important. You know, and so that's where people kind of go, well, no, I don't want nothing to do with guns. Guns are everywhere, you know. And if you choose not to own one, you should at least still have the knowledge of how it operates and how you can clear it.
Yeah, no, 100%. So I've actually had the privilege of being a shooting sports coach for the 4-H.
Really?
And, yeah. So it's a neat deal. I got my certification a few years ago to be a shooting sports coach.
I want you to, after this, give me some information on that, because I really would like to learn how to teach people to do it. That way, it's not just me being an idiot showing them how to do it. I can legitimately have some sort of something.
And we could talk about that, but it's specifically for 4-H, and it's really not so much. They don't really teach you how to handle the firearms. It's more like being around kids, and it's more of the little certification you get is how to teach kids to do it.
Gotcha.
So, what I like most of course, I love shooting, and rifle shooting. I'm terrible with a shotgun. I'm absolutely awful. I can't hit a dove to save my life, but I enjoy making the noise while I'm out there.
I say I never hit any, but I scare all of them.
That's it. Yeah, there's a bunch of tail feathers missing in dove in South Texas. But I enjoy rifle shooting, so I'm a rifle instructor, and there's another guy named Matt Murphy who really took the bull by the horns and got things going for our 4-H group, and hats off to him for making that happen. But I help Matt. But what I like most about it is, hey, my boys play baseball and they play soccer and they do all this stuff, but the chances of going pro in those things and it being a lifelong career is slim, just because the odds are not stacked in in anybody's favor of doing that, right? So there are a select few that make it that far, but not everybody does. But shooting is something that's a lifelong skill, right? I hope that my boys like me will continue to hunt for the rest of their lives, and so like showing kids these skills at an early age, and then showing them how to do it right, or showing anybody, not just kids, but anybody, showing them how to do it the right way, not only makes you a better marksman, but it teaches you a skill that you can use for the rest of your life,
sure,
right? And be good at. And so that's why I've always gravitated towards that. But I just love shooting. There's something super gratifying about aiming at a point and being able to hit that, whether it's at 25 yards or 1,000 yards. Being able to hit that mark is super gratifying, and just like I say, it's awesome. It's an awesome feeling to actually hear a gong, a steel gong ring at 1,000 yards when you poked it.
I still need to get you to shoot my steel.
I don't know what your problem is. You won't come to South Texas and do it.
I'll send it with you here in a minute, because I want you to at least take it and screw with it, and then next time I go down there, I'll record you shooting it. But
yeah, no, there's something super gratifying about, especially the long range, that when you can shoot, and the scope goes black for that split second after you pull the trigger, and then you can go right back in the scope, and then you can watch it hit, because it took that long between trigger pull to target.
That's crazy.
I
don't think I've ever shot anything that far.
It's awesome, and you can hear the bullet, right? You actually have long enough to hear the bullet travel.
Really?
Yeah.
How many yards are you shooting?
So at the ranch,
at that distance.
Oh, you can hear the bullet at, let's say, 700 yards. By the time from trigger pull to ding, it's you actually have there's more time than you think there is, right? Unlike shooting a deer at 100 yards where it's bang bang, right?
So you're not shooting iron sights now.
There are some people that do.
Let's tell everybody you're shooting iron sights at 700 yards.
Yeah, it's a Quigley
Clay
down under.
Jostes, Livo County.
Yeah. No, not quite. There are some people that have that gift. I guess I can say I've never tried iron sights past a couple of 100 yards, but scoped rifles at 1,000 yards is some pretty sweet action.
You know what's cool is and tell me if I'm super weird, but
you are.
Shooting, I would imagine shooting at a distance is similar to shooting a bow, where like you really have to clear your head, and there's a moment there where you've got to be relaxed, you've got to be calm, you've got to control your breathing, and there's a process to it that is super relaxing. Because if you're not going to be accurate. And so when you can kind of get to that point where you train yourself to go through those processes, especially like with a bow, that you have to do the same process every time to be accurate and have a good grouping. There's a lot that goes into it, and it's not just picking it up and shooting it or whatever. So you got to relax.
That's the hardest part with kids, right? Is the consistency in all of those things, but then how do you make an 8-year-old kid relax behind? That's like herding cats. But if you can get some of those kids, especially the ones that are just a little bit older, the 8-year-olds, the ones that they can start shooting at 8, competitively shooting it for 4-H at 8. But the ones that are a little bit older, you can see a light bulb kind of go off, a little switch goes off when they figure that out. And it's neat. It's kind of like coaching a kid in baseball or anything else. When the light switch goes on, they're like, you've been yelling at me to do this forever, and now I finally get it, right? So it's really gratifying as an instructor to see someone get it, right?
Yeah. I was listening. It's funny you say that, because I was listening to my buddy Ryan Murphy, the one who had done a podcast. He's got his own podcast called Murph 2.0. And he was talking to a guy named Matt Young. I think Matt's son practices with him. And they were talking about that exact thing, how they do things repetitively. And there's a point where the kid gets it. And all of a sudden, he's enjoying the process of getting better at what he's doing. The practice is no longer something that disinterests him, right? He like it now, because now they're understanding the process, and they're understanding that if they continue to work at it, they're going to get better. And so they're similar to what you're talking about. There's a little switch that happens, and they're talking about how awesome that is to watching a kid. So that's pretty cool.
If a kid can see, if you can, because I know a lot of adults that still have never found that same like switch that they can go from.
You're talking to one.
Yeah. Well, you can go from, you think that the practice is mundane as opposed to, hey, I'm learning something here and I'm getting something out of that. And so there's a lot of adults that haven't got to that point in their life. And hey, I was probably one of those kids too. It was always like, geez, I have to go to practice again. Why can't we just go to the game, right? Well, the games are the icing on the cake, right? Yeah. You have to get to that point to in order to win. If you want to win, you got to do all the boring stuff to get to that point. Right?
It's reps, It's funny because like I'll go shooting with Nina, or I'll go with my sister, or just friends in general. And it's Nina's God bless her. She's the type of person, like, she does something once, she thinks she knows what she's doing forever, And it's like, no, you've got to get comfortable with it, and go, going back to like self-defense and handguns and stuff. I tell people, they always look at me weird, but I have to explain it. But I'm not intelligent enough to explain it to them immediately. I always say stupid stuff, but I always tell people, you've got to play with your guns, and they look at me weird, and I say, well, not like playing.
Right.
You've got to understand how they operate, what they feel like in your hand, how to chamber around, how to get that out in the dark when you're tired, when you're high stressed. Like I told you, my heart rate went from like 79 to 112 instantly, and I can feel it in my ears, but you've still got to be able to function, and you still got to be able to, and that only comes with repetition and touching the gun and understanding the weight and how, if I hold it a certain way, what side is it heavy on, and people go shooting every now and then, they go, okay, well, I can shoot, and it's like, no, you've got to be more responsible than that. Yeah. You have to play with your gun, man. You have to go shoot it. You have to know what that feels like. You've got to learn to. There's so many times that I'm trying to get my sister into a little bit more where it's less of just target practice, right? Instead of just sitting there and spending 20 seconds aiming and then shooting, let's do it a little quicker. Let's acquire the sight picture. Let's take a shot. Let's move to a different target. Let's do those things quicker, so that way your body gets used to those movements. Because if you're in a high stress situation, when you're hunting, it's something different, because there's more of this time period that you have to acquire the sight on the animal and wait for a good shot, and you kind of, okay, I'm going to shoot in this zone, and there's trees here, I need to get him before he gets there or past that. So there's that process. But then there's the other one where it's the home defense style, where you've got to be comfortable with doing those things quickly and at a high stress. Yeah. And a lot of people go, well, I go to the range, once a month. It's like, hey, man, when the alarm goes off and your wife's yelling at you and the dogs are barking and you're half asleep, are you going to be accurate? You hear that son of a bitch? He knows that we're recording a podcast. Anyway, well,
it sounds like you probably do more practicing than I do. And I
love it, dude.
And I enjoy it every time I go out too, right? Yeah. I genuinely do. My wife enjoys shooting, and actually, like with a pistol, like I'm sending her out. If somebody's in the house, I'm sending her out because she's a crack shot, right? I'll be the one to tell the cops what happened, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna send her out, but I don't practice as much as I should, and a lot of that has to do with I can't get ammo like I want either, right? Yeah. So while I've got enough in the stash.
Yeah,
I want to make sure that.
Well, that's the crazy thing, right?
It stays in reserve, right?
It's funny. We went to the shooting range with Ryan Murphy and his wife and Nina, and this was probably, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago, 2.5 months. We get to the range and nobody's there, and Nina's like, "Are they open?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they're open." She's
nobody has ammo.
Where's everybody? I'm like, "Nobody has ammo." Yeah. The days of going to the range and spending 6 hours there and shooting every gun you got as many times as you want, that's gone, all over, man.
Right? All over. I reload my own stuff, so, but even, right.
How long have you been doing that?
A few years.
Okay.
But even that is almost impossible now because you can't find powder and you can't find primers.
Yeah.
So even you may have rounds and rounds of brass, empty brass, but you got nothing to put in them to make them go pew.
Yeah.
So it's awful right now.
I follow a few guys, and one in particular is Grind Hard Ammo, and he posts a few things, and he's like, they're trying to get a back order from overseas, primers, even just shell casings. I was on Midway USA, I was on Gorilla Ammo or something the other day, and they even have a disclaimer that they're using different primers and that may not work, with certain guns.
That's what I want to buy, right?
Yeah, so it's like, oh my God, now you're going to have all this junk ammo out there because they're trying to sell it, and people are willing to buy it, and they're willing to take a risk, and it's like, well, shoot, I may as well just sit on what I got. The good thing about me is I have shot a lot in the past. So I'm a fat, extremely attractive, middle-aged man who's really accurate. So when I go shooting, I typically shoot a magazine and check my grouping. I'm good. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
I don't have to shoot 100 rounds. I'll go shoot 6. I'm good to go. All right, let's get out of here.
Well, like I said, components and ammo are hard to come by now. I wasn't doing it much before. If that's any consolation, but I'm more of one of those guys like, I went out, I shot a few rounds, things are still good. I still know what I'm doing, but I should practice more, right? So, actually, my wife and I took a self-defense, not a self-defense class. I don't even want to call it that. It was kind of a handgun class, and the instructor was a super neat guy. He taught SWAT teams up in the Austin the area. And anyway, he was very clear to say, he's like, I'm not here to teach you how to shoot a gun. He says, I'm here to teach you how to fight with a gun. And that kind of stuck with me because that's what the instruction was. It wasn't step A, B, C on how to fire a weapon. It was here's step A, B, C on fighting with a weapon, right? Because that's what the training was about. He assumed you came there with a competency that you knew which end the bullet came out, right? And that wasn't what the training was about. And anyway, super great training. I haven't practiced as much as I should have in what was taught in that training deal. But
I watch a lot of videos. One guy, he's famous, but his name is Tu Lam, and ex-military guy, teaches a lot of shooting classes. And I was showing some videos to some friends of mine of his, and like they're kind of mind blown, right? Because he's talking about shooting, in self-defense and things like that. But he's talking about how he shoots 5 times in the chest, and he says, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to sever their spine. He's like, overseas, I've shot people where in rescue missions where they didn't go down. He said, so we got away from that, double tap kind of mentality or whatever. He said, so I shoot them 5 times in the chest because I'm trying to sever their spine. He goes, and if they don't go down, when I shoot them in their hips, because I'm trying to
break them down,
break that structure.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like I was playing that for my buddy and my brother, and they're kind of like, well, man, this guy's intense. And it's kind of like, well, you got to keep in mind, he's teaching you from a perspective that I'm trying to save my life.
Yeah.
Right? This isn't, hey, let me pull my gun out like TV and scare somebody. This is, I'm pulling my gun out because I'm in fear for my life.
Right.
And that's where I think people, especially here, gun sales I saw the other day, like for March, were like 4.5 million FBI inquiries or something like that, from gun sales and stuff.
Democrats are the greatest thing ever for gun sales, right?
You know what? I keep saying, shut up. You're killing my vibe, man. I can't find ammo.
I know it. Shut up about your gun control.
Shut up about your gun control. You're killing it. But and that's the thing is people run out and buy them, and they don't work. They don't practice with them, man. And it's like, I think everybody who can legally own a gun should have 7 of them. But it's also, you have to remember there's a responsibility to it. Yeah. When can I use it? When should I use it? And am I skilled enough and trained enough to use it? Yeah. Not going to the range once every 6 months.
Yeah. Well, tragically, all my guns were lost in a boating accident, so I don't have any left. It's a shame.
You had mine with you, so apparently neither one of us have firearms. But don't come to my house because I'll poke you with something, so you'll end up with holes in you somehow. But yeah, man. So I always tell people, be nice, be polite, and buy more ammo if you can find it.
That's right. Absolutely.
Well, let me ask you this: we're man, we're not even near being done. I don't know how I want to do this, but let's get into some politics stuff, man. I always want to talk politics, and there's some people that I want to talk politics with, and there's some people that I know that if I try to, it won't get anywhere. So you're probably one of the first ones that come to mind when I want to talk politics, but I don't know if you probably don't watch much TV, but there's a show on Netflix called Stranger Things. I don't know if you've seen that.
I've seen it advertised. I've never seen it.
Well, in the movie, there's this alternate universe or something. I don't know. I'm gonna screw it up. Some nerd's gonna go, "That's not what the movie's about." But it's basically there's where we live right now, and then there's a place called the Upside Down, and the Upside Down is the same thing, only it's very ugly and gross and monsters and weird shit. So Ed Calderon, he's a ex Mexican federal police officer. He trains people and does shit like that. Well, he's always posting stuff from Mexico and bad things happening down there, and he always says that we live in the Upside Down. And so I've kind of been thinking, like, man, we really do live in the Upside Down, man. And it's funny because, like, we're so disconnected, man, as a populace in this country. And I think that, and this is going to be me just spewing everything in my head right now, because I was texting you all day and I was trying to hold on to it, and I was like, well, don't forget to talk to Clay about that. So I'm just going to spew it all out. But it's like there's all kinds of people, right? And there's all kinds of problems. And like I said earlier, people always like to associate a fix to a problem. And it's like every problem is a problem because of multiple factors, right? It isn't because of racism or because people are homophobic or people hate women or whatever. There's the whole mess of things that are happening. One thing that I've been kind of kicking around, and let's go all the way back up here. I know I'm rambling, but I'm trying to gather my thoughts. So there's a huge group of people in this country, and I said this to Nina a long time ago, there's a huge group of people in this country that hate this country. You know, I've only started paying attention to what's going on in our country probably in the last 10 or 15 years, right? Because I was a knucklehead trying to hook up with chicks and stuff like that. Extremely unsuccessful. But now I'm an adult and I work a lot and I pay more attention to things other than hot chicks. But there's a group of people that hate this country. They don't want it to exist any longer. They want it to be something totally different. And I don't even think they understand what they want. So I was like, when did this start? Where did this come from? You know? And listening to Charlie Daniels, In America is the name of the song. And he's singing, and I'm like, man, when was this song made? 70s? Mm-hmm. It's the same stuff we're doing today. So I started doing some research, and this is my deal. You can't go to one news station and watch that without and get an unbiased perspective. This is the hard part. Everybody works for a living, right? This is the hard part, is that you can no longer say, I'm going to go to this one outlet and I'm going to get informed. Because everybody's got an agenda and they're not even hiding it anymore. So for you to get proper information, you have to go to all kinds of sources. I even go to places that I hate just to make sure I still hate them. You know what I'm saying?
It doesn't take long.
It doesn't take long. But, you know, the truth is somewhere in there. And when you go to 5 or 6 different outlets, whether it's mainstream media or a podcast or somebody's Instagram page that you're starting to kind of trust a little bit, politicians are out there more, you start looking at 6 or 7 of them, you start seeing the commonality between them all, and you go, okay, well, this is probably more accurate, you know? So it's real difficult to get informed, right? Stay informed, and to not let yourself get drug into, man, I really agree with this vein, so I'm going to just stay here. You got to get out of that comfort zone so you can find out what else is going on. But so I try and do that. And so I'm listening to this Charlie Daniels song, and I'm like, man, so what's going on, you know? So I started doing some research, and I'm like, oh, this has been a problem that's been happening since the 50s and 60s. Not just the whole converting United States from what it is, you know. And so I'm like, oh, it's socialism, it's communism, and it's like that's the same people that were trying to change the country in the 50s and 60s are now responsible with education.
Right.
And they're indoctrinating younger people to believe the things that they believed in the 50s and 60s and 70s, or let's say 60s and 70s. So we're just repeating that, you know? Go ahead.
No,
But
I think that's the scariest part. I think what you just hit on there at the end is that the folks that believed it early on are now in the education system, right?
Yeah.
And that's what's scary for me is that what's being
we might be 2 generations behind on teaching kids.
Yeah,
you know.
So here's the one thing I don't know if we disagree on it or something that I don't quite think the same as you. I don't think that as Americans we're that far apart in what we believe. But what I do think is the far left and the far right have gotten further left and further right.
That's more accurate, I think.
Yeah. But I think the middle's still the middle, and I think that's still the vast majority of Americans. But kind of like Nina was talking about before we went on, started recording, that the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? So the far ends, the extreme ends of both spectrums, they're the ones that are making all the noise, and I think our media has a huge culpability, a huge part to play in what's happening, because I think there would be nothing to report if everything was great, right? So
yeah.
they live in a world that they want chaos, right? They want to make sure that
they're partly creating it, or if not partly, they're leading it.
They're at least promoting the chaos, because that's 24-hour news cycles has been the death of some of this crap, right? Because they got nothing to talk about anymore if they don't gin up the news, right? So I still think liberals, and I use the term classic liberals, and conservatives have far more in common than what we're led to believe by society. I don't know if that's the right word, society, but just the general populace wants you to believe. I think we have far more in common as Americans than what we don't have in common. But it's the extremes on both sides, and I think to a greater extent on the left side, the folks that genuinely hate America but are here, that are causing most of the strife. I mean, hey, I've worked overseas. I've seen what other countries can offer their citizens, and I've seen legitimate poverty when I worked in Africa, like real deal poverty. Like the poor people here never had it so good, right?
Yeah.
And
you can be poor here with a refrigerator full of food and a cell phone.
100%, right? I mean, but I've seen like legit poverty working overseas, and so I don't care what anybody tells you. The stuff we're fighting about in this country, that's first world problems, man. Yeah. First world problems. There are so many bigger fish to fry in the world than some of the crap we're fighting over, and it absolutely kills me, because it's tearing families apart. It's tearing society apart, and
sure.
And people can't sit across from each other and have a disagreement and still like each other. It's to the point where if you disagree with me,
we can't be friends.
We can't be friends. I now hate you. Why can't we just?
That's
why can't we just?
mind-blowing, man.
Yeah. Why can't I just say, you know what, you don't agree with me on this? Fine, let's have another beer, right?
Yeah.
That can't take place anymore, and it's troublesome to me, right? It's the art of disagreement and debate has just gone away, and it's now. But and again, I think social media has a lot to do with that too, because
it's
it's a cesspool.
Yeah,
but it's instant gratification. It's
people are instantly getting attention.
Yeah. How many likes can I get for this comment that I just tried to tear this guy down because he made some sort of comment, and I made some smart aleck remark in response, and how many likes do I get as a response to that?
Yeah.
It's awful. It's absolutely awful. Like I'm a member of a couple of different pages on Facebook, and some of them are just absolutely awful. You know, some of them I have like a baseball drills, because I have a coach for a baseball team, so I have a Facebook page where I tried to go to this page because it was like advertising. Hey, we promote these drills, and I'm like, great. I always need another drill to run at practice, right?
Sure.
Well, somebody brings something up, and for every drill there's 35 people telling them how stupid it is, right? Well, it's irritating because you know what? That drill may have worked for that one or two kids that are out there that need that skill set, but you got all these people that are happy to tear you down over it. It's a baseball drill, people. Yeah. Relax.
Very few people have constructive insight to give you information on how to be better at something, but everybody's got a negative opinion on how stupid you are for doing what you're doing. You know, and you definitely articulated that a lot better than what I did. I agree with you 100%.
If you want to know if you're right or wrong about something, post it on Facebook. They'll tell you exactly how wrong you are,
and you're going to be wrong about it. But I agree with you where I think we have more in common than what we don't. This is the thing that I notice, and I notice with people that I even know and love, or know and barely can stand, is I know they know right from wrong, but they refuse to go against what they've always been for, because it's almost like they don't want to say, man, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, just because you've always been affiliated with one party or another, and one party or another is doing something that deep down inside, man, this isn't what I would want.
Yeah.
But you go with it. You, like I said, you ignore the raping and all that other stuff that's coming out of South America or Central America
until your party's in charge of it.
Until your party's in charge, and then it's okay. Let's ignore it.
It's the hypocrisy of, and it's both sides, right? It's not one or the other. The hypocrisy of each side is what absolutely kills me, because it's like, have a moral stance on something and stay with that regardless of who's in charge, right? But it's difficult for people to get out of their camps, right? I'm in the Republican camp, I'm in the Democrat camp, and they can never get out of that camp, regardless of whether you're now 180 out from where you were 6 months ago. They can't get out of that camp because now they're told to think something different, and it burns me up, because there's certain things that I'm steadfast on, regardless of who's in office.
Sure.
Right. And
I try and be that way altogether. I mean, I'll definitely say I've never said I'm affiliated with one party or another, but I will say this: the Republicans do things a lot more in line with the way I would see it. Not everything.
Right. Not everything, but I'm with you there
for the most part.
So I don't say I'm not a registered Republican, but I vote Republican because, by and large, they fall in line with what I do.
Especially at this point, they couldn't be more different.
But do you really think that, or is it the far left that's running the Democrat Party? I don't know the right answer there, because things are starting to on the other side of the aisle right now. Things are migrating swiftly, right? It's not the fact that things are changing that's most concerning. It's the pace of the change that really.
Well, this is kind of what we touched on earlier when we were talking to Nina. There's probably a lot of Democrats that go, "This is out of control," but why aren't you being vocal?
Right.
Why aren't you being louder? Why aren't you putting your foot down? Because you're afraid to lose your spot.
They're scared to death, right?
Yeah, but that's the thing is, it's easy to be strong when things are easy.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
But that's not what we
takes courage.
elect you for.
Yeah.
You have to have courage to do that. When I always tell little kids all the time, we're with Lewis's kid this weekend. What do we tell them? And we tell kids this. Always do the right thing, even if it's unpopular.
Right.
Even if nobody else is doing it, do the right thing. But politicians can't do that.
No.
You know, one thing that aggravated me, and people always kind of, Republicans, for example. I think, what was his name? Ryan something. He was the Speaker of the House.
Yeah. Paul Ryan.
Yeah. For years, it was like, we can't do anything. We need the House. Well, they want the House. We can't do anything. We need the Senate. We got the Senate.
Now I need the White House.
You had all three, and you didn't do anything.
Didn't do anything.
You know what I'm saying?
Never cut a dime of spending, right? Never cut a dime of spending, and that's the type of stuff that absolutely burns me up, right? Because I'm a super fiscal conservative, and in some ways even socially conservative. But there's a lot of things that would probably blow people's minds about the things I'm far more liberal on than others, right? I'm a big fan of live and let live, right? You want to do stuff in your life that I don't do. That's up to you, man. As long as it doesn't impact me, what do I care what you do?
You know what? I don't know if I'm not going to say that's a conservative thing, or I'm the same way.
It's a libertarian, classic liberal like position, right? I don't care what you do.
Yeah.
I don't care who you say you are, male, female, black. I don't care. I genuinely don't care. That's for you. What do I care? As long as it doesn't.
But now there's an aspect of the population that doesn't see things that way. They go, you need to do what I want you to do, or how I do things.
Well, it's kind of like things have gotten so backwards, right? We're in the upside down world, right? Or where for a long time you were never supposed to see color, right? But now you're a racist if you say you don't see color. Now you're racist because you don't see color. Well, as a white guy, I'm super confused, right? What am I supposed to do here, right?
Dude, I'm so glad you said that. It drives me crazy. I'm gonna go back to something real quick. No, you know what? I may touch on that another time. The Democrat Party was responsible for segregation. The Republican Party worked on integration, right?
Yes.
Bringing people together.
Yes.
The Democrat Party was responsible for segregation. We grow up, we're taught not to see color, treat everybody the same. Okay, be a gentleman, hold the door. All right. I'll be honest with you, I say some off-color things. But I legitimately do not care what color your skin is, because I wasn't raised that way, and we were in a time period where they were teaching that.
Right.
Now, it's all about skin color. Now, let me tell you this. I told Nina this the other day. The Democrats were responsible for segregation. Here we are, 60 years later. They're still responsible for segregation, but they've convinced certain aspects of this people in this country to segregate themselves.
Right.
They're geniuses, man.
It's strange, isn't it?
It's
come
strange.
full circle, and now what used to be wrong is now right. And that, like I said, as somebody
we're in the upside down.
We're in the upside. I think we're in the upside down world,
yes.
right? So when you genuinely don't care what somebody's sex or color or if you're straight or gay, I genuinely don't. And like you, I say a lot of off-color stuff, and
it's so fun.
I joke about it, but I think it's funny because I guess I have a wicked, dark sense of humor. I joke about it because I don't care. If I genuinely cared, I probably couldn't joke about it, right? But I say I'm a sexist pig around my wife, and it makes me laugh because I know I'm not like that
right
in reality, right? So that's what the comedy is I can say off-color stuff because I know in reality that's not who I am. Comedy is all but dead. Like
nobody has a sense of humor.
Well, what can you say on stage anymore that isn't going to get you canceled? Right? I don't understand what these comedians are supposed to say.
Well, that's similar to what we were talking about earlier.
Old Chris Rock stuff, old Dave Chappelle, or even current Dave Chappelle stuff. Nobody says the N-word like Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
But, now he's getting bashed for saying, well, it's funny because it's dark humor but it's not what the reality is, and that's what makes it. There's a touch of reality in there, otherwise it wouldn't be funny, but that's what makes it funny. And people have lost their sense of humor. You can't go to a comedy club to laugh anymore, right? You're going to a comedy club to find fault in what somebody says, or you're going out, or you're listening to a politician speak, or you're listening to anybody speak to find fault as opposed to find commonality. And that's a big issue for me.
People,
right?
And they say it all the time. People are just, they're on pins and needles waiting to get offended.
Yeah.
And we kind of talked about it earlier, and I'm a nobody. I'm nobody. But I say stupid stuff all the time, like I told you earlier. And it's to me, it's to keep people on their edge, right? And it's like, I don't have to say that stupid stuff or act obnoxious, but I do it because I don't want you to forget that it's okay to be that way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's okay to say off-color things. It's okay to be an idiot. Like you said, that's not who I am. That's not how I am. So that's why it's funny. If I sit there and tell Nina, get in the kitchen and make dinner and take your shoes off.
Yeah.
You know, she's going to look at me like I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
I hit on everybody's wife.
And smack you. Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
I hit on everybody's wife. Nina's like, nobody... Look, I'm a fat, unattractive, middle-aged guy. Everybody knows it's a joke. Yeah. Nobody thinks I'm going to leave with their wife. Are you kidding me? You don't even want me. But, my God.
But that's, like I said, I think we've gone so far away from where this was supposed to go.
Well, let's reel it back in, man.
But no. But that's part of what the problem is we've lost, as a country, we've lost our sense of humor. We've lost the togetherness that we used to feel. And so there was a brief moment after 9/11 where I felt like we were Americans. Right?
Oh yeah,
we were one, right? There was, but that didn't last long. But there was that brief moment after 9/11, and I still remember the feeling, that we had a common, like, we were Americans, and by God, we were going to bring it to the person that did this. Right? Yeah. You didn't care who the person next to you was or what their political affiliation was. We were going to bring it.
Well, all that was put to the side for that,
But it didn't last long, though, did it?
Didn't.
No, it quickly went to crap.
Yeah.
What stinks is it's always the worst situations that bring people together. And you could talk about America, but you can say that in small scale too, in families, right? So it's usually tragedy that brings people together, or sends it down the crapper, one or the other, you know. But it's tragedy, adversity. It either makes you or breaks you. But and it's that way for human beings too, right? You can have something tragic happen in your life, and it either strengthens you or it tears you down, and you become nothing. You devolve into nothing.
You said earlier how talking about social media, and it's kind of cool because you can keep track with friends and family, and meet people or come across people you hadn't seen in a long time. But outside of that, it's a trash can. And people are so quick. It's so easy to say something negative towards somebody else. So during the election last year, that's all it was. And I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day, and it's like all these people that had nothing to do but talk trash. You don't hear a peep out of it anymore. And I told my nephew Jared, we were talking the other day, and he's like, "No, I didn't vote." And he's like, what am I voting for anyway? And I said, "Look, man," I said, "you need to vote." I said, "No party is perfect. They're not going to be. And I'm not going to tell you what side to vote on. You pick." I said, "But this is what you need to do. If you feel that you have more in common with the Republican Party, go vote Republican. If the Democrats get voted in, hold them accountable. If the Republicans get voted in, hold them accountable." That's where people turn the switch off. It's like, my team won. I can stop paying attention. It's like, no, your team won. Pay even more attention.
That's right.
You know, and that's where people get that we won. I can get off this. It's a lot of stress, man. It's a lot of stress fighting with family members and friends on social media. And that's why I don't do it. I almost got drug into one time. Oh man, I was gonna let her have it, and I'm not even gonna say her name. But
she knows who she is.
No, I don't think she does because I'm too nice to her too. But I was on the verge. I even typed out everything, and I said, "Wait a second, I don't do this. Let me delete it." She wants to have a conversation. Let's go have lunch. Let's go have dinner. I'll talk to you. Because I guarantee you, if we sit here on social media and we send shots at each other, we're not going to get anywhere.
Right.
If I buy you lunch and we talk, and I see a perspective, you see my perspective, we're probably going to find some common ground. And that's where we don't have time for that anymore, man. Everything's instant, you know? And I think that's kind of what pushes us apart. I will say this. At the end of the day, I agree with you. I think the vast majority of the people in this country are more like-minded than they are not like-minded. We just need to get off of what team am I on. There's a guy named Killer Mike. He's a rapper. I like him. There's some stuff that I totally disagree with. He's a big Second Amendment guy. But one thing, there's Beaumont at it again. I wish Nina would come get him. But anyway, he was talking the other day, and he was getting into it. And he's got this little slogan that he uses, and he makes T-shirts and stuff with. And he says, "Kill your masters." And he was basically telling everybody, you're all fighting over who has the best master. You know?
Yeah.
Hold them accountable. Make sure that who you're voting for has your best interest in mind, regardless of how you feel. But what you do is you vote because you think you got the best master. It's either Trump or Biden at the time. And it's like, that's how so many people behave. You know, it's like, I'm going to vote for Biden because I can't stand Trump. You know, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and somebody's going to turn off this podcast because I'm going to say, there's no way Biden won that election.
Well, I don't know. So, hey, that election was something else, right? So
something else.
I don't know that he didn't win. Here was always my fear going into that election. Trump didn't. Not that he didn't win the first time. He won, but actually Hillary lost because she was just awful, an awful human being, and people didn't turn out to vote for Hillary Clinton because she's awful.
But do you think Joe Biden had more votes than Barack Obama?
Yeah, and here's why. I do think that because, and I had a lot of people disagree with me, and that's fine. If I agreed with them, we'd both be wrong.
Sure.
But I knew that the numbers for the turnout for Biden was going to be massive because they learned their lesson with Hillary. They weren't gonna make that mistake again. Because
what about Michigan and Wisconsin though? Saw that.
But go back and look at Michigan and Wisconsin, in 2012, and so the numbers were super depressed compared on the Democrat side in those elections, and actually Trump got fewer votes than Romney did, right? So it wasn't that Trump won the election as much as Hillary lost it, right?
Gotcha.
That's my point. And hey, he won. I'm going to admit this. I didn't vote for Trump the first time. The first time
did you
I
vote
didn't.
At all, or you
I did vote, and I didn't vote for Hillary either. But my rationale was I didn't believe him. Right? He had been a Democrat forever. He was a New York Democrat, and I just didn't believe him. And
it was hard,
and that was my problem. And hey, you ever been wrong? I was wrong, right?
Rarely.
I mean, I guess who am I talking to, right? That was a dumb question, but I was wrong, right? But at the time, you gotta rewind and put yourself back in that position. I did not believe what he had to say. I was so glad I was wrong because I thought he actually in a lot of ways governed far more conservatively than I ever dreamed he would. I mean,
I'll be honest with you, I was impressed.
I was impressed. I never liked I never liked what he said. I always liked what he did. Right? There was a big distinction between the two. I never liked what he did. I never liked what he said. I always liked what he did. And I happily voted for him the second time because he proved who he was, and that he wasn't just it wasn't just baloney he was spouting. He actually did a lot of great things.
You know, when what year was it? Oh, all my guns fell in that lake.
Oh, it was the same year that our guns went in the lake. Yeah,
that's why Beaumont is so defensive right now, because I'm unarmed. But anyway, when Mitt Romney ran against Obama, I didn't know anything about Mitt Romney. Now that I pay a little more attention, I'm like,
he's awful now, isn't he?
Oh, but you know what? For me, it was kind of like, I always saw it. I said, this country needs to be run as a business.
Yeah.
You know, he's a businessman. All right, well, maybe Mitt Romney's the guy to go to. He didn't win. And so when Trump was running, initially I liked him and Ted Cruz. And I'll tell you, I didn't know anything about them. I hadn't even really paid much attention to Ted Cruz, other than the fact that he's from Texas, and everything from Texas is amazing. But everybody hated those two. And so for me, I'm the type of guy, if everybody hates you,
there's got to be something there, right?
There's got to be something there, because it's a cesspool in Washington.
Yeah.
So if everybody in Washington hates you, you must be all right, you know? So I started paying a little more attention, and it was the first time that you saw somebody in the Republican Party that did not care what you said about him. He was gonna talk trash back. And a lot of people got turned off by it. You know, I was listening to Joe Pags the other day. He's originally from like Miami or New York or something.
He's a San Antonio guy now, isn't he?
Yeah, he's from here in San Antonio now. But he was saying, you know, that's how New Yorkers are. He says, you know, we snap back. We think about it later, but if you're talking trash to us, we're going to talk trash immediately back.
Yeah.
That's just a New York mentality. So when I heard that, I kind of, all right, you know. Then he ended up getting elected. Everybody lost their stuff when he got elected. People were crying, freaking out. They couldn't believe it. And one thing that I've never understood is, I've always said, if I was somebody that was pro-Democrat, by the way, they're the Democrat Party, not the Democratic Party. So
right.
Quit calling them that. Yeah. Not you, but people in general. To me, it was kind of like, well, if I affiliated more so with the Democrat Party, and that is who you're putting in the race for me to vote for, that's the problem.
Yeah.
You can't hate Donald Trump because he won. Hate your party for putting in such a crappy candidate.
She's awful.
She was under investigation by the FBI.
She's awful.
Benghazi, you know, and it's like, and you're upset with Trump?
No.
Be upset with your own party. And that's the problem, is people don't like to look inward and go, I don't want to see my mess, so let me call out your mess.
Right.
You know. So when he won, I was kind of in the same boat. I didn't really know what he'd be like, you know. My only, I guess, seeing him was on TV and stuff. So it turned out, you know, I was kind of like a lot of people. Was like, man, I really like this guy, but I'm not gonna say anything because people are gonna kill me. Now in hindsight,
yeah,
he was pretty good. You know,
that's right. Unorthodox,
very,
but did actions were better than words, right? My only issue, and it's still my only issue with Trump, was because of the talk, the people he needed to win over, he lost the suburban people that he needed to win by the divisive talk, because his base was going to be his base no matter what, and the people that were against him were going to be against him no matter what. It was that mushy middle that I think, again, this is according to Clay, which is usually right.
No, I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah, but I think the mushy middle that didn't like the way he conducted himself is what ultimately lost him the election. That's my opinion, and there's a whole. It's hard, but the alternate side of that is, how do you pick up seats in the House and lose the presidential election? I don't.
Well, you know, did you saw the graph in Michigan and Wisconsin, right? And I think everybody saw that. Yeah. And it's like when I first saw that, and it just right away you're kind of like, wait a second, man. How does he get all these votes all at once and not a single vote for Trump. To me, it's like, if you're gonna cheat,
make it look a little more believable.
A little bit more believable.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that blew my mind was when Pennsylvania, the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania said that the signature on the voter ID card did not have to match the signature on the ballot. And it's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You know? And then you start hearing all this other stuff about people getting multiple ballots at their house and they didn't even request them.
Yeah.
It's a mess, man. And let me tell you what, at the end of the day, whether Trump won or Biden won, I really don't care. The important thing to me is the integrity of the vote. And if that's not there, then we got a bigger problem that's going to get
going
very
forward,
nasty.
right? No,
Yeah.
you're 100% right there, because if people don't believe in the institution, that their vote matters, and it's whoever can cheat the best wins.
Yeah.
We're the next Venezuela.
Yeah.
Right? A Venezuela that was ultra wealthy not too terribly long ago.
Yeah.
You know, they were the top 3 wealthiest countries in the world, and now they're just performing poorly, to say the least, right? And that's,
and you want to talk about, you know, a humanitarian issue. There's a lot of people starving down there. You see photos coming out of there and videos coming out of there, people eating out of the garbage or just eating out of the street. That's tough, man.
Yeah.
That's real tough.
Yeah. No, for sure. For sure.
But let me see if I can get Nina to come get this damn dog. He's driving me crazy. But you know, there was one of the other things that I guess it drove me crazy. Hang on, this damn dog. I'm gonna have to kick him or something here in a minute. But anyway,
we do not advocate animal violence, by the way.
Only on my dogs. These are my dogs, so I can kick them however hard I want.
Play Sarah McLachlan for you in the background as you abuse your dog.
Hey, this is the only time I wish we had video so people could actually see I'm not kicking him that hard. But one thing that kind of always makes me nervous is going back to what we talked about with people coming over here from another country. And putting locals, in a position where they might have to do something that they wouldn't have to do if policies were different, right? So that goes back to the same thing with the way people are trusting in the vote, the way people are trusting in politicians, the way people are trusting in these institutions that we trust in, right? When people no longer... And I don't think that we're near it, but I think once we start heading that direction and people lose trust in that, we're going to turn into something that we don't want to be. And the nice thing about, we talked about earlier with guns in general, there's so many guns in this country, right? The nice thing about a gun is is the shooting and enjoying of them, but hoping never having to use them, you know? And I'm not saying that we're going to turn into this huge civil war, this revolt or anything like that. But people are crazy, man. People are stupid. And at some point, you're going to have somebody doing something real stupid, and it's going to get very ugly and nasty. And it's all because of, I feel like, this path we're heading, you know. We're getting to the point, and granted, there's legalities and there's constitutional legalities and stuff, but, you know, with them wanting to add more Supreme Court justices, trying to turn Washington, D.C. into a state, Rush Limbaugh was saying 2 years ago they were going to do that.
Right.
Both of those. And talking about turning, Puerto Rico into a state too. You know? And
it's actually iffy whether they would go Republican or Democrat, but chances are it'd be Democrat. But I worry about the same issues too, because once you start down that path, how hard is it going to be to try to get you back into trusting the government once again, right? It gets you into a situation where it's like I've been distrustful of everything they've done for the last several years. So how in the world what steps could they take to get you to trust what they had to say again? And I don't know what they would have to do. I don't know what we would have to do as citizens to trust in those institutions again, apart from it just being a time and proof that they're doing what they say they're going to do. And hell, they haven't done that in ages, right? They haven't done what they said they're going to do in ages. So what have they done to make us trust what they're doing now? I don't know. And the media hasn't helped either. And we only briefly talked about the media's issues, but they report on the narratives, right? So that for folks that aren't in South Texas, you don't hear about what's going on in South Texas because it doesn't fit the narrative. It doesn't fit what they want you to know as Americans, right? So outside of here, you don't hear what's going on in rural South Texas or rural New Mexico, Arizona, right? It's awful. We don't have for 24-hour media coverage. We don't have much. We don't have much real news that goes on.
No, you're
right?
exactly right. So. Exactly, and that's kind of goes back to my fear of things that need attention not getting attention, and putting people in those positions where they may have to defend themselves, or they may do something. You're putting people in positions that they shouldn't have to be in. Right. With proper policy.
Well, one of the few things that our government's constitutionally obligated to do is to protect the citizens, and that seems like the one thing that they're doing everything but their constitutional duties as a government entity.
Well, that's the thing, and let me ask your opinion on this because I don't know the answer. How do you get them to do that? I mean, I get voting the right people in, but where we're at right now, we're 100 days into Biden's presidency. Now I get that the House and the Senate will be up in 2 years, but it's like he's just started. He was 4 hours into his presidency, and he shut down the Keystone Pipeline and unemployed 9,000 people.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Nobody wants that.
Hey, so it hasn't been talked about much lately. It was more come up when Obama was still president. But I think you're going to see what I think you'll see coming is as a constitutional convention. A convention of states. So if our elected officials won't amend the Constitution to make some of these changes, and I think small things can be tweaked, and to make massive changes.
That's Beaumont drinking water.
It's a loud drinker.
You know what? He's getting real close to getting his own podcast because I'm getting sick of him. We know, Beaumont.
There's small changes I think that can be made in the way that government works that would make dramatic impacts. I'm a huge fan of term limits in Congress.
Man,
like
we need that.
Massive. Because we have career politicians that amass power and then don't do it. Well, not that they don't do anything with it, but the rest of our elected officials come to there, and if you're not in the hierarchy of power, it doesn't matter what you say. They're making deals, backroom deals, and then telling the rest of their constituents the rest of the party how they're going to vote. And I actually think, hey, technologies. Look what we're doing right now. Look what the way podcast and Zoom and all these things. Why do our politicians have to be in Washington? If you want to cut out some of the lobbying and the croniness that goes on.
Is the fence still up over there?
I believe so, yeah.
That's something else.
Maybe that's why they can't leave. They can't get out. I don't know. But if they had to go home and actually see their constituents day in and day out, and then they were only allowed kind of the way Texas, like everything that comes out of Texas is obviously right because it's the greatest state in the union.
Absolutely.
But our Congress and Senate meets every 2 years, right? So in person, that's when they meet in person, is every 2 years. Well, I'm not necessarily advocating for that in Washington, but why do they have to live in Washington? They're completely disconnected from the people they're supposed to represent. And if they were made to be in their home districts, I think that would make a hell of a difference too, because they would have to face their constituents every day, right? So if we could get a few things changed, I think even Supreme Court justices ought to have term limits, because people have made some really bad decisions, and mainly on the Republican side. It seems like Republicans can never get it right on Supreme Court justices. It seems like they do their best to bring in a constitutionalist, a purist, so to speak, and it bites them every time. They end up, voting in some closet liberal that ends up killing us,
Yeah.
And it just absolutely gets me. I have just major issues with how the Supreme Court, and actually the fact that the Supreme Court is actually, they wield so much power. They were never supposed to have. They were supposed to be the least dangerous branch of the government, and they've turned out to be one of the more. They affect more policy than they ever should. They should never be a policy body. They were supposed to be, yes, constitutional, no, end of story, right? Or kick it back to Congress to say you got to change this, right? As opposed to rewriting it or reinterpreting it into what suits their fancy. I've just got issues with but that will never, you'll never get a politician to vote themselves out of a job, right?
That's what I was going to say.
So
Yeah.
term limits will only happen.
Are huge, man.
Will only happen if there's a convention of states, a constitutional convention of states, and then the states say this is what you're going to do. I just think there needs to be some structural change. I think our founding fathers were just infinitely wise beyond their years, and it's crazy.
It's amazing. Isn't it?
It's amazing that, and maybe because they came from an oppressive government, that they were able to go in and create a government with their eyes wide open and into the tyranny that could happen, into the corruption that can happen, into the power by giving all power into one person. I think they saw the pitfalls of that, of the way that was designed over in Europe, and they were super, like I said, super wise beyond their years to create what we have as a governing document. I don't think they foresaw the career politician. I think they saw the folks that were getting elected were going to come. They were going to do their term, maybe two, and then go back to their life.
Yeah.
And that has obviously changed.
I think that when they in the writing of the Constitution, I think they did a lot of things well. Things got amended, but at the same time, term limits are massive. One thing that you hear, again, I don't think it's the mass populace, but it's the loudest portion of the populace that talk negatively about this country. And one thing that I try and tell people is you have to keep in mind, before 1776, we belong to the redcoats. Yeah. This country's done some things pretty crappy. There isn't a country on this planet that hasn't. But I always tell people when I get a chance to talk to them is you got to keep in mind we're 244 years old, and in 244 years, look where we're at.
Right.
Compared to other countries that are thousands of years old, hundreds of years old. Look where we've come. We're
a superpower, right?
We're a superpower. We're a superpower. There's people say, well, what about the Native Americans? What about every country has its sins.
We didn't. Not everything was rainbows and lollipops, right?
No.
But we've, as a country, I think we've atoned for a lot of those sins, right? I mean, hey, we had a whole civil war. We washed in the blood of Americans over slavery. And have we done everything right since then? No, but let me tell you what, we've, as a country, our forefathers they literally fought and died over that issue.
Yeah.
Right? And not there wasn't just, a few hundred of, there was hundreds of thousands that died during that time over slavery. And,
and to me, in such a short span of time, we've done things to improve lives of everybody in such a short period of time, and a lot of people, one thing that frustrates me is how people will sit there and continuously say, we've got to restructure the country. In a small group, we've got to restructure the country because of what we've done. Look what we've done in 244 years. Look how people are dying to get over here.
Yeah.
You're going to tell me this is a terrible racist country? And people are trying to come here from all over the world?
Yeah. If it was so bad, why aren't people fleeing the southern border going the other way? If this is so awful, right?
Yeah.
You'll never get me to buy into that argument that we're awful.
No, we're amazing.
Every other country in the world is dying to come here. You know what?
In the grand scheme of things, globally, the United States is basically Texas.
I wish, I saw a meme or whatever, and it was actually so spot on accurate and so true. It's like, I wished Americans loved America the way Texans love Texas.
Yeah,
because this would be the greatest place on earth. If Americans loved America the way Texans, you could sell any product in the store if you put the shape of Texas on it and call it made by Texans, or for Texas, or Dude, is there anything better than Texas toast? No, there's not anything better than Texas toast, right? There. That's right. That's exactly right.
Texas shaped shooting target.
That's right. You can sell anything to Texans if you put the shape of the state there. That's just a fact.
You got to be from Texas to really appreciate it. But one thing that, in all seriousness, and I try not to harp on negative, but since I have you here, I'm going to be super negative because this is the only time anybody will listen to me. But I just want us as a country to get our shit together. For this reason, I always say United States is wild, and I like that. I like that we have a wild side to us. I always say globally, United States is the cowboy of the world. Texas is the cowboy of the United States, and South Texas is the cowboy of Texas. So we're the wildest, I'd like to think. But one thing that always scares me, and maybe I just put too much thought into it sometimes, but there was the Revolutionary War, right? We needed to get out from England's thumb. And it was blood and a bullet, slavery that had to end. And it was blood and a bullet, And people always say, well, you have to learn from history so you don't repeat it. But we repeat history all the time, man. And I don't think it's going to happen in our lifetime, and I hope it never happens. But what worries me is there's so much indoctrination of younger kids in the school system. And mentalities are changing. Cities are burning. I never thought you would watch a city burn. Look at Portland.
With no recourse.
None.
That's what gets me, is like, yeah, the city burned, and nobody was there to do anything about it.
But that's the thing, man. That shit's happening. It's happening in certain parts of the country, and nobody's doing anything about it. And the thing that scares me is, what is this going to look like in 20, 30, 50 years?
Yeah.
My fear is the bullet in the gun again. That's what scares me. And I said, I hope it never happens. I
pray
never
you're
get
wrong.
there.
Yeah, I pray that senses will, good senses will prevail, but it doesn't look that way currently, does it?
Right.
It doesn't. But
dude, there was last year you had those cops in LA getting shot in the face. Cops getting shot all over the country.
Or it just and not allowed to retaliate.
None.
They're not allowed to.
Even this girl that got shot the other day. Did you see that one?
Oh, and that's what. So that's even when the cop is
justified
defending
a life,
another life. So what gets me is that cop was going to be hosed no matter what he did. If he didn't pull the trigger on that girl or stop her, then he would have been a racist because he didn't stop the girl from stabbing the other.
Yeah.
He was in a no-win. So when does it become a point where cops are like, hey, I'm not going to that part of town anymore because I can't win. I can't win over there. No, if I do my job perfect or I screw up, I can't win. You know what? we're lucky we have positions or jobs where, you know what, when you screw up that day, yeah, it may have cost my company a couple of bucks, or I'm now behind schedule, whatever. A cop has a bad day, and it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Right? It's a big deal. I mean, I used to work in a position where I was in charge of a $1 million a day operation. So when I screwed up that day, I cost my company $1 million, right? Yeah. The cops are in a whole different level of, if I screwed up today, look at what's happened. And he didn't screw up, and that's just it.
He didn't.
He did not screw up.
But there's people with platforms that have access to a lot of ears and eyes that are saying he did.
Right.
And it's like, he did not, man. And you know what's going to, you talk about what's going to happen when cops start leaving the force. That's happening in New York. And so that's going to be the first opportunity that we see in the next 5 or 10 years when all these cops are leaving and nobody's getting recruited in. That's what it's going to look like in the for the rest of the country if we don't get our stuff together.
The country was on a really good track or trajectory of crime, major crime, petty crime, all that was all headed in the right direction. And we're going to end up going to the crime rates of the 70s and 80s. I was born in 79, so I don't even know what the crime.
I was a baby too, Clay.
Yeah, but those crime rates were back then we're not even coming, even though we're on the wrong trajectory now. We're not even back to those rates that took place back then, right?
Yeah.
And going back to that is just a step in the wrong direction, and only because you're demonizing the very people that are there to help you. And I firmly believe that 99.9% of officers are there to genuinely help and do their civic duty and help prevent some of that stuff. But cops don't prevent crime, right? They're only called.
They're reactive to it, yeah.
Well, but that's not. Most police officers don't prevent crime, right? They prevent it in the fact that they're getting the bad guys off the streets.
Yeah.
But you call the police when something happens. They're a reactive force, not a proactive. And it's.
Did you watch that video of that girl getting shot?
Yeah.
How many times did you watch it?
Just the once. Like I said, I didn't want to watch the
I watched
the kids.
it like 12.
Yeah.
And let me tell you why. I had to watch the cop. I had to watch the girl in pink. I had to watch the girl doing the stabbing. And then I worked my way backwards. And after the 10th or 12th time, somewhere on there, I saw something, man. And I went, what in the world? This girl comes out with a knife, right? She's fighting with another girl. They start tussling. The girl falls down. The girl with a knife takes a swipe at her and immediately goes to the girl in the pink. So my eyes are following this motion, right? This thing happening. As soon as that girl with the knife changes her attention to the girl in pink, I guess the dad, he said, "You killed my baby." So I'm assuming the dad or stepdad, I don't know what he was. Soon as that first girl fell down, she took a swipe at her and then changed her direction to the girl in pink. That grown man goes to stomp that other girl in the head who was on the ground. And I'm thinking to me, and you want to know why this girl put herself in the position that she put herself in? Because of examples like you. What grown man is going to stomp a teenage girl or early 20s girl in the head?
Yeah.
When she was almost stabbed. It's like, wait a second, you're putting this back on the cop. We need to go all the way back to the beginning. How's this girl being raised? Who are the adults in her life? You know what I'm saying? All these are contributing factors to that moment. Right. But the only thing people are judging is that moment.
Right.
And it's like, we got to quit judging moments. We need to go all the way back to the beginning. And we need to start fixing that stuff.
Well, that's inconvenient, though, isn't it?
Super inconvenient.
That's an inconvenient reality of what's going on. And a lot of inner city is lack of fathers staying, two-parent homes that don't exist anymore. Hey, so my parents were divorced, but I had the luxury of having two parents that still loved me, right? So while I came from a broken home, that didn't change the fact that I still had two parents that cared and wanted to make sure that the moral values that I had were still intact, right? But there's a lot of other folks that aren't in that same camp, right? That can't. They were raised by a single mom. If they were lucky, raised by a single mom. If they weren't in,
this girl was part of the foster system.
Yeah,
from what I understand.
and that's a problem too, right? Is absentee parents on both sides, and expecting the foster system to raise these kids, and it's an unfortunate circumstance that a ton of the folks that are in jail are I don't remember what the exact stat, and actually shame on me because I'm on the board of CASA, which is another great organization, by the way. We won't go there, but they talk about the number of people in prisons came out of foster care. It's a good percentage. It's well over 50% of the folks in prison systems are products of the foster care system because they didn't have proper adult supervision or parental supervision growing up to teach right from wrong, and they just learned that they were set on a terrible path from the beginning, and it's an awful situation to actually put kids in, right? And that's kind of what got me into the whole CASA, advocating for kids that go into the foster system.
One thing that I had seen a while back, man, and like I said, I try and get information from everywhere. And I forgot, several months ago, but I heard somebody talking, and I was like, man, that kind of makes sense. Because honestly, I don't care who's doing the talking. If you're making sense, well, listen, right? So the guy's talking about single-parent homes and things like that, fatherless homes, things like that. And one thing that I found interesting was this guy was trying to make a point. Whether he was right or wrong, I don't know, but it made some sense. Saying how, and I'm not gonna be as articulate as he was, but basically saying how in lower income families there was more money involved if a father wasn't in the house. So I don't know if that's accurate, but funding was being allocated to these women to have more children and being a single mom.
Right.
So all of a sudden it was to their advantage not to necessarily be married.
Yeah. It's a tax problem. It's a tax code problem, right? That there's a financial incentive to be unwed with multiple kids and the husband or male figure not in the home. Anything that if a tax structure is set up to incentivize one action or another, right or wrong, is not good, right? I mean, that's a whole different category of governments. But yeah, so that's it's unfortunate that you're setting up people to live a life that's genetic or
it's counterproductive.
It's counterproductive, but I mean we as a species are set to have a male and female two-parent system because the mom brings something to the table that the dad can't, raising kids, and the dad brings something to the table that the mom can't, raising kids. And hopefully, if you don't have a dysfunctional family or parental units that are just bat crap crazy, you can create children that are well socialized and functional members of society, as opposed to the folks that will end up in a life of crime, prison, drugs, you name it. So it's and statistics also show that two-parent families end up financially better off You know, and that only makes perfect sense if you have two incomes coming into contributing to a household. You're going to be in a better position financially. You're not going to have as much debt. Your kids are going to be better adjusted. I mean, there's a
lot of positives to having two parents.
Hey, don't get me wrong. There are bad two-parent households too,
sure.
but the good outweighs the bad by leaps and bounds.
But there's that, like you said, there's that incentive, financial incentive that's already geared toward incentivizing a family unit or lack of that we're paying for. You know, it's tax dollars going to incentivizing people not to be co-parents, not to live together. You know, and it's just kind of something that you know, it's frustrating, and it's not something that you know you and I can force and figure out here, but it's like there's all these different aspects. So when you look at it, and this girl that gets shot, and she's in a position that you know she didn't need to be in, you know, and when I saw the dad try to stop that girl in the head, and then immediately he's like, "You killed my baby, you killed him." It's like, dude, you were just trying to stomp this other girl's head in, you know. It just blows my mind. But.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. So kind of the same situation. I watched it once, and I'm not a big fan of watching videos of folks getting.
Yeah, and I'm not either. But like honestly, I'm a little screwed up in the sense that it's like, to me, it's kind of like I feel like I need to understand this, you know, and I can only understand it. I can't go to CNN to understand it. You know, here's the video of it. Let me watch it and try and understand what's happening. And so I don't know the ins and outs, the particulars and months or whatever that's been going on in these people's lives. But in this moment in time, when you see the behaviors of certain people in that family, and you're going, man, this is a bad situation, and it wasn't. Beaumont's even upset about this, but it's a bad situation that the poor girl found herself in, and it's unfortunate that it ended the way that it did, and that she put herself in that position, and that she was around people that probably didn't do a good job of directing her away from that type of behavior. Yeah. You know,
well, you would like to think a good parent, that father, would have been pulling his daughter away in that instance and not contributing to the scene, right?
Yeah.
Actually, hats off to the cop for being able to process that whole event in the matter of seconds. In the matter of seconds.
I told Nina, I said, that guy is something else. I said, because the first couple of times I saw it, I was like, I didn't even know what was happening.
Or who was doing what, right? I mean, it's
so chaotic.
Yeah.
And for him to be able to take in everything going on, because there's multiple actors involved, and for him to take all that on and then find the most critical threat and then neutralize it.
No, I'm glad there are people like that in the world, because I haven't had that type of training. I've never been put in that position, but I'm not sure I would have done as good as he did.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you too. So. Well, man, we're pushing 2 hours and 17 minutes.
Wow,
Clay.
That went by fast.
And that's because we were BSing for about 30 minutes before that. So.
Yeah.
But man, I appreciate you coming. I appreciate you chewing the fat with me and sharing some stories. But one thing I want to tell you, your wife and your in-laws, I love them to death, man. Let me tell you something super cool about your mother-in-law and your father-in-law. So my dad was quit school in the 7th grade. He quit school in the 7th grade because his dad had left. He had to go work and help grandma and sisters out. So dad's education stopped at 7th grade. All my years growing up, your in-laws invited dad to every high school reunion that they had, even though he didn't graduate.
Right.
They'd always tell him, "You're part of our class. We love you and want you to come." And it was always those two, always coming over and sharing that with dad and making him feel included.
Yeah.
So I love them.
No, they're they're fantastic people. Both of them are just, I mean, salt of the earth, good, genuinely good people that want nothing but good for others. And yeah, so and that rubbed off on my wife too. She's
a great person.
She's a phenomenal human being. I don't. It's not a joke when I say I married up because
I know you and I agree.
She's outstanding. She's raised 2 outstanding boys that I couldn't be more proud of, and I love her to death. Absolutely love her to death.
Yeah, she's good people, man. And
Yeah.
so are you. Hey, so tell me some stuff real quick.
Yep.
Toby's thing, what's it called again?
Sulphur Creek Helicopters.
And what is he doing?
What is he doing? Hey,
They're relocating wildlife, right?
Well,
In
so hey,
Samosa?
that's part of what he does. I mean, from cattle work to survey work to wildlife, wild animal capture to predator eradication, you name it.
And he's out of Live Oak County.
He's in Oakville, Texas, Live Oak County.
Does he have a certain area that he sticks to or no?
Nope, he'll travel. I mean, he travels all over. No job too big, too small. That type of deal. But hey, he travels all over. He'll has truck will travel, and he's a fantastic pilot. Just great guy.
Oh man, go look him up on Instagram. He's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yes, his videos are. I show people all the time, and they're like, "You know that guy?"
Does he have Instagram? So I don't do.
He's got an Instagram.
Okay,
yeah.
so I don't have Instagram, but he's got a Facebook page too. But anyway, yeah, great pilot. I couldn't be luckier to get to fly with him from time to time and learn from some good folks and so yeah. And
then your pilot school.
So that Veracity in Seguin, hey, asked for Louis Liao. He did me right, and I probably tested his patience more than once flying, but he did a bang up job with me. I haven't killed myself yet, so. Yeah, so good job, Louis.
Good job, Louis. Hey, and the meeting on May 11th?
May 11th at the George West Cafeteria. We're going to talk about all things border related and come learn about what's currently going on and kind of learn some ins and outs on the legalities of what you can and can't do. I'll be emceeing the event just to try to keep things under control and under a decent time constraint. And
what's the time? Y'all starting over there?
Yeah, we'll start at 6 o'clock, 6 to 8.
Okay.
On the 11th, and hey, spread the word. If this podcast comes out before that, spread the word. That's what's happening.
Anything else, man?
No, man. I'm just super happy to be here. This was a new venture for me, and
I'm glad you did. I hope you had a good experience, man.
I did. I'd love to do it again. I mean, we barely touched on just stuff. And
what? One thing that I love talking to you about is, and we don't see each other nearly as often as I would like, but I enjoy conversation, and I enjoy conversation about uncomfortable topics. And I will say that I knew you were special a long time ago when me, you, Bo, and Kelly had gone to New Year's Eve at some party near, I don't know, SMU or something. And we were up to watch Aggies in Tennessee or something play.
Yeah.
And we caught a taxi back. And this the taxi driver was from like Nigeria.
South Africa. I remember that.
And man, you two almost threw down. And I remember cracking up, and Kelly was worried, and Bo was Clay. And I was like, man, I love this guy.
He had some different political views, and it was an interesting taxi ride back.
It was super interesting and very uncomfortable. But man, I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. We're definitely gonna do this again, and we may have to drag Bo and Carl Walker into something, but
all right,
we have to trick him. But man, I appreciate your time.
Hey man, love you. I enjoyed it, and I can't wait to do it again.
Love you too, man. Thanks to everybody for listening.
All right, thanks.
Yes, sir. Bye bye.
Thanks for listening to the Gabe Molina Podcast.